All right. Hi, everyone. My name's Bree, and I work here at Military Spouse Magazine. I just want to thank you all for attending this morning's webinar. I know it's kind of early for some of you who aren't in the Eastern time zone, so I'm glad you could make it. We have a lot of great information to put out today. Verenice and Susan did a great job putting this presentation together, and I'm extremely excited to hear everything that they have to say. I'm going to go ahead and unmute Verenice. There you go. Verenice, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is going to be a great webinar full of great information. I hope the weather is nice. Over here is getting really nice and cool. I'm at Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico, so we're pretty excited about it. I am so excited to have such an amazing guest today. She is a military spouse, mom, and a great friend, and an outstanding advocate. Not only that, she is our 2013 Pope Army Air Force Base Spouse of the Year and our 2013 Air Force runner-up, Mrs. Susan Reynolds. Susan, welcome, and thank you for being here with us.
Good.
Can you hear me, Susan?
No, I can't hear anybody.
You cannot hear anything?
I can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay. I was just saying, I don't know if you heard me saying anything before. I was saying that thank you for being with us. And I just wanted you to say something. Thank you for being with us. This is going to be a great webinar. We're pretty excited about it. Susan, can you hear me?
Okay, Verenice. I'm not sure what happened to Susan. It looks like we need to wait for her to reconnect.
Okay, sounds good. I guess while we are doing that, and we are waiting for Susan, I'm going to tell everyone a little bit of my situation and one of the reasons why I was so motivated to do this webinar. My youngest son has a global developmental delay, and he's been dealing with this since he was born. He'll be 7 in November, and all this time we are been struggling with Tricare. It's been an emotional roller coaster. The problems with the referrals, the waiting list. Every single time that we need a therapist or a developmental pediatrician, there are always long waiting lists. And you know what? When you already delay having to wait on a waiting list, that is not helping at all. It's just making it more complicated. And I know that there are many of you feeling the same way and feeling mad, frustrated, disappointed with the services that our kids are getting. You know what? Instead of getting better, it looks like they are just getting worse. This is the reason of the webinar. We want to make sure that we reach out to all of you that are feeling the same way with all this craziness. Just remember that you're not alone. And I am so sure that after this webinar, you are going to feel more confident and knowledgeable and hopefully ready to join us to advocate for what is the right thing for our kids and what they deserve. So let me see if Susan can hear us now. Susan,
can you guys hear me? Did you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Susan, I don't know if Susan is there.
Yeah, it shows that I'm speaking, but I guess it's not working.
Okay, we can hear you.
Oh, yay!
Yeah, we can hear you. So I was just giving a small brief or introduction on my situation with my youngest son and all the struggles. So now that it's so good that you can hear us now, I just wanted to ask you to tell us about your situation and the reason why you're doing this.
My situation came about actually after a series of really horrible things happening to my family. We PCSed from Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska to Fort Bragg, Pope Army Airfield. Well, it was still then Pope Air Force Base when my son was 6 weeks old. And the first issue we ran into was continuity between the different Tricare regions. They actually misplaced the birth of my son. Tricare did. He was in Deers, but Tricare was not aware that I had a son here in the HealthNet region because I was seen at a civilian hospital at our last base because it was small. And so that was something that kind of alarmed me from the very beginning, that there could be some issues, because I thought, well, you probably shouldn't lose the birth of children. You know, that just cannot be a good thing. And about 6 months later, my house was then hit by a tornado. My son had an incredibly flat spot on the back of his head. My husband deployed right after we lost our house, and I ended up moving to Raleigh to live with my mother, thankfully, but was commuting back and forth to maintain continuity of care to our military treatment facility. And I was being told time and time again that Ian, my son, did not need to see a pediatric neurologist until he was 12 months old. That was the Tricare policy, and he would be just fine. He would eventually grow out of everything, except you could see that his ears were not lined up, and he had a little funny point actually on the side of his head because he had such a bad flat spot on the back of his head. And he was actually starting to have ear infections, and there is research that through the research I have found that there is a correlation between the plagiocephaly, which is what Ian was suffering from, and ear infections, because of course, well, part of his skull was pressing on his eustachian tubes. So finally, I just got frustrated enough and said, you know, enough is enough to this doctor. I was like, there's something very wrong here. I know my son needs a cranial reshaping helmet. I got the Tricare authorization, but it took me 2 months to get in to see the specialist. Well, by now Ian is 14 months old. He should have graduated from his helmet at 10 months old, and he's not even gotten into one. And we're now losing time. And we all know that children grow very, very quickly, and time is not on our side when it comes to our children's health care and preventing developmental delays or whatever you're trying to prevent or fix or whatever. By the time I finally got into that doctor, he then sits down and tells me, he's like, well, he's a perfect candidate. However, you're not going to get Tricare to pay for it, but they will pay for a surgery to reshape his skull when he turns 3 years old. And I remembered sitting there and looking at that doctor, and I said, so Tricare will cover a surgery that could seriously cost upwards of $75,000. It's invasive. It could kill my child because it is a surgery into his head. They could make some kind of mistake and actually create problems and create issues and brain malfunction, but they won't pay for a $3,000 reshaping device. And he looked at me and he went, yeah. And I just remembered sitting there looking at my husband completely dumbfounded by that. And I said, that makes absolutely no sense to me. We found a great orthotics company. They provided us a military discount, a 50% discount, which was fortunate. And we paid for everything out of pocket. And I remembered sitting there in that doctor's office saying to them, asking questions, how many families do you meet here that are military from Fort Bragg that are going through this thing, the exact same thing I am? And they say, oh, half their patient load is military. And the thing that really killed me is that they told me that Medicaid paid for these helmets. But, you know, it takes a long, long time to get onto Medicaid. And I just didn't have the time. And so I started talking to Tricare at our local Tricare facility, and I will never forget what the Tricare representative told me. She said, in order for my son to get a helmet, she said that I should register him EFMP so I could, quote unquote, score a free helmet for my kid. And I I was unbelievably appalled by that because I thought, what a horrible way to take advantage of the system and hurt families that are truly in need. And I walked out of that office. I remembered I called up my best friend. I was crying and I said, you know, what am I going to do? And she's like, you know what you're going to do? And I was like, yeah, I do actually. And the next phone call I made was to my United States Senator, because I promised right then at that moment that I was going to change this policy, because no family should endure what we went through. No family should be told poor information, be told wrong policy, made up policy. I mean, policy was seriously made up and told to my face. And it was just very, very unfortunate. Everything that, you know, we were going through, not because it was horrible for my son's medical care, but because no one seemed to know any information. And the information that they did know was not correct, but they were passing along that information. And I was being told left and right how to take advantage of the system, which just didn't sit very well with me. So as you see, there's this picture of Ian with his helmet on, and he was just so stinking, I can't even lie, I thought he was so stinking cute in that helmet, because he wore it like a champ. He actually kept it on his 4 months. He you know, his ears actually aligned. He ended up not having ear infections for, oh gosh, probably 18 plus months. And he was very, you know, he just was doing very well and very successful in it. We caught him at really great growth spurts and everything, and it was just unbelievable. So, you know, it was very, very interesting what we went through. And I saw over here in the chat that someone said that Medicaid doesn't cover the helmets anymore. I know here in North Carolina, I was told that they are still covering the helmets. I think it might be a state-by-state issue, since Medicaid becomes coverage is state by state. And when I found out that Medicaid was covering them and that we have different Tricare regions that cover these helmets, that's when I really dug in my heels. Oh, Michelle, I'm so sorry. I just read I'm in Texas and they don't cover. Michelle, I'm really sorry about that. That makes me very sad for you, because they need to cover them.
Maybe, I'm sorry to interrupt.
I'm like, oh, I see that question. Sorry.
And you know what, for Michelle, probably this is one of those things that you can take on your own and try to fight with your senator at the state senator and try to do something about it, and not just because probably there's a lot of you in Texas that are dealing with the same thing.
Ugh, that's so, that makes me crazy for y'all, because it shouldn't be that way. And Michelle, my contact information will come up, so please write down my email address so we can keep in touch, and I can send you some information on how to hopefully fight and provide coverage for families there. I will do anything to help our military families out. And it's not just the helmets that I got involved in. When I started working with my senator's office, the big thing that they said to me was, this is just one piece of a puzzle of things that are not covered, things that are denied, you know, care that's being denied to our children and care that's not being provided in a timely manner. Well, I have since discovered that Tricare is based on Medicare. And while Medicare works great for adults, I don't know too many 65-year-olds that need cranial reshaping helmets, since you should have caught it by the time they were 18 months old. So it's not really working out so well for our little kids. And when you have large treatment facilities that have a lot of families, EFMP, non-EFMP, and you're just a saturated military population, no matter what, you're going to have long wait lists, long appointments. It's going to be very difficult to get in to these, you know, these treatment facilities. And so that was something else that I noticed was an issue as well. Just to get a wellness visit for Ian, I would have to book, you know, at least 4+ weeks in advance. Well, I mean, you know, I understand that, but at the same time, you couldn't get into an urgent care appointment either. So I just thought, okay, you know, what can we do? There needs to be something that's going on. So I started to really research Tricare policy, and I found that Tricare actually has some pretty decent policies, especially in regards to, I found that their urgent care policies really seem to work well. The downfall was is that application of that policy was not great, and I would do constant battle with my son's pediatricians on post in regards to that urgent care policy. And I will never forget, I was telling Verenice this one time that I actually was on the phone with the advice nurse, and she was telling me that he could not get an urgent care authorization and that I had to just go and sit in the ER for, roughly 8+ hours. And I said, hold on just a moment. I said, I have the Tricare policy right here in front of me on my computer. I said, let me read it to you to make sure that we're talking about the same urgent care policy from Tricare. And when she gave me my authorization. And so that's when I realized I slowly but surely was becoming a better advocate and mom for my son. And I started taking that information and sharing it with anybody I could tell across Fort Bragg and Pope. I didn't care. I would seriously stop strangers in the commissary and be like, oh, let me tell you about this. And I would just tell them everything that was going on. I met a very good friend of mine named Jeremy Hilton, who was the 2012 Military Spouse of the Year. And we decided to start working together to tackle Tricare issues, EFMP issues, family healthcare issues. He was more the EFMP angle. I was more the Tricare, just the overall health and well-being of our children angle. And he introduced me to a wonderful piece of, it was legislation back then called Tricare for Kids. And Tricare for Kids is a study that came from a really great congressman named Steve Stivers, who is actually a National Guardsman out of Ohio, and he's now a congressman. And he noticed discrepancies with Tricare when he was activated for active duty with his family and his children. And it really got to him, and it bothered him to the point that he knew something had to happen, change had to come. But of course, nothing happens in DC without some kind of study being done first. So it was a study put together by this wonderful working group of experts. So the Children's Hospital Association, Military Officers of America, National Military Family Association, Autism Speaks, Easter Seals, Military Special Needs Network, oh my goodness, the American Association of Pediatrics is involved. All of these phenomenal organizations are involved working to update pediatric healthcare and Tricare. It was passed by the House. It was co-sponsored by Susan Davis from San Diego, and who is also a former Navy spouse, so I kind of like her because of that. I was like, hey, she's one of us. And Congressman Stivers. And then it was passed by the Senate and signed into effect as part of this past year's National Defense Authorization Act. And it was very exciting because now the real work has begun. And I'm not kidding, I've never worked so hard in my life for something that means so much to me ever. We are talking about completely updating Tricare for all of our military children. More collaborative care for our children. If we can't get in on a base, then we need to be able to be seen off base or off post, however you guys, however anyone says it. We're talking about, ABA policy here. We're talking about, providing coverage for things like helmets or cooling vests for our kids, or just there's so many things that are just little things that are not covered, and some of them are not little things. They are vital to the health and well-being of a child, and yet they are continuously denied. And it is just, it's very frustrating to know that our families are working so hard, not just us as spouses, but our service members too. I recently wrote a blog and I said very clearly in it, my husband pays for our health care with his life. All of our spouses pay for health care because they volunteered. Their lives are on the line in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't necessarily mean to be the front line. It can be here in the home front as well, because we are putting ourselves out there to protect our nation. And I'm just one of those that thinks if you're going to do that, then it's okay to have some really great health care for their families, especially their kids. They are born into this life, and while we may have chosen it, Our kids are born into this, and the least we can do is provide them adequate health care that mirrors what is going on at different levels of health care. So with Medicaid, there are families out there that are receiving phenomenal health care, and they are, really getting the great health care that they need. Medicaid will help pick up the cost for families who have health care. I know of families that I have met all across this country, both parents are working. They just have a child who has severe health care issues. Their insurance covers what they can. Medicaid picks up the rest. And it's wonderful. It's fantastic that it is, working so well for so many of our children. And I am so pleased to see that. But at the same time, I know that we're on a federal payer program as well, and we should be receiving the same level of care. To me, it's just that simple. We need to be receiving the same level of care. And it shouldn't be so hard to receive that care. So, and that's what the Tricare for Kids working group is working on updating is, let's just make them a little bit easier. Can't we make some lives a little bit easier here? Just a little, it doesn't need to be that hard. It's already stressful enough.
Yeah, it is.
So,
It is so true. All of the stuff that you're talking about is so true, and a lot of the times we gotta hear it from someone else so that we hear or that we see that point of view. Sometimes we are so caught up in our own frustration that we don't see beyond that. And all of the stuff that you're telling us right now makes so much sense. But you know what? I am worried about something, and probably there's a lot of them worried. Right now, our nation is facing a lot of craziness, and right now with the potential of the government shutdown, and Tricare changing, we know that Tricare changes almost every day, and a lot of the times we're not aware of it. Do you know, are there any changes that should be coming up that we're not aware of, or what are the consequences that might come to us because we're not acting and we're not fighting them?
Oh, that's a really great question, Verenice. Thank you for asking all of that. I mean, you've really brought up some great questions and great points. Well, my biggest fear right now, and I think a lot of us who are working on Tricare issues or any kind of military issues, is that we do know that there is a potential government shutdown next week, which means that anything and everything that people are working on in regards to the military, if they do shut down, it's just unfortunately going to take a back burner. However, I truly believe, and this is where I am probably one of the most hopeful people on the planet, I truly believe that we as military family members possess a great power that we do not know we possess necessarily. And that is, we have the ability to call up congressmen and women and senators and say, hi, I'm Susan Reynolds. I'm a military spouse at Fort Bragg, and I'd like to share my thoughts with you on the upcoming, or the potential government shutdown. And we have the ability to do that, and I think we should. I have heard that there are going to be continuing resolutions. I have gotten that from a senator's office and a congressman's office. I don't know if that will actually happen. I do know that my congresswoman is actually working on legislation at this moment to help out with Tricare. She is a huge advocate of Tricare for Kids. She is a huge advocate of military families, and she is now working on a bill that will actually provide transparency with Tricare on written notice on when they are going to make policy changes, and they have to provide it to us. Because as we all know, sometimes Tricare will change a policy and we don't know about it. And I don't know of any upcoming policy changes at this moment. So if I do find out anything, I will definitely follow up and make sure that people know that. But to know that we have people who are actually listening in our government makes me very, very excited and hopeful. Congresswoman Elmers is my district congresswoman, and she is the one that is working so hard right now helping us out with Tricare for Kids and Tricare legislation. She is actually a nurse by trade, so she gets what we are talking about and understands the need to provide great pediatric health care. She is she has been an angel to us, in all honesty. And so, she wants to help as best she can, and to keep on pressing on people, and to make sure that that we tell them, this is just unacceptable. You have to fix this government. Get our budget under control, because they need to do this, because we're the ones that are going to seriously suffer from this, and I don't like that. So I really hope that what spouses will do is get on the phone and let people know in our Congress, hey, you know what, you need to fix this, fix these issues, because it's not, they're not the ones that are going to suffer. We are the ones that are going to suffer, and it's going to be even harder for us to get our health care for our kids if they're talking and they're seriously going to shut down the government. So to me, that's our first big hurdle to overcome at this exact moment, is we have to prevent a government shutdown. And I think if enough of us band together, we can do that. I have expressed interest. I have expressed my dismay and my frustrations with quite a few people in the last few days, and I know that my voice is being heard. And I hope that more spouses get out and do that, because once we overcome that hurdle, then I really think that it's going to just be one of those moments where families are going to say, okay, now you've got this under control, let's start fixing other things. Of course, Tricare is probably going to come back and say things like, well, some of what you want is very expensive. And I'm sure that they are going to say that, but think about what was offered to my son. A massive cranial surgery, thousands upon thousands of dollars, or a $3,000 helmet. Well, right there, that's a huge savings to the taxpayer. I know that I've read the research that actually says that ABA is cost effective in the long run, because it may seem initially expensive, but when you are working on helping children, to provide for them, their education, their welfare, their well-being, you are saving money. And it's just that simple. It will be very interesting to, I don't understand, for me personally, I cannot figure out why, Tricare is so, so, I don't know what the word is exactly for them, but they are really sticking to their guns here. They're digging their heels in on certain things, and I cannot figure out why. It's just some of those things that I just am like, it really actually, an ounce of prevention really is worth that pound of cure. So if we make sure that our kids have what they need, we're talking about saving money to the taxpayer in the long run. And I know people really think short term, because I know when we were, the Tricare for Kids group was at a meeting in August with Tricare. They were, cost this, cost that, blah, blah, blah. And it took everything in me not to roll my eyes and shake my head and be so openly rude. I can't lie. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, everyone, but I almost was very openly rude. But the problem is that is, they're just they're looking only right in front of their face. They're not looking long term. And if you look long term, you honestly will see you're saving money in the long run. And that's what we're trying to do, is save money and provide great health care for our kids. And so I'm hoping that once we get over this hurdle of a potential government shutdown, that we can really get to work. So the downfall was, out of that meeting, though, back in August, is that Tricare asked for a 6-month extension to review and to potentially start implementing the parts of this study. And I'm not kidding. I left that meeting, and I actually pulled my sunglasses down so I didn't cry in front of everyone. And I cried almost the entire car ride home from Washington, D.C. to North Carolina. I was so incredibly disappointed. To know that it felt like I was not, as a spouse and as a mother, I was not being taken seriously in there. And I was one of the few, actually, I was the only person in that room that Tricare for Kids and the 9 parts of our study, and if it's fully implemented the way we are hoping will, my son, my family was the only family in that room that would actually benefit from what we were talking about that day. And for a moment, I got incredibly bold, and I actually, said to this this man who works at Tricare, sir, I said, you seem to forget that I actually sit here and represent 2 million children, since I am the only person in this room that has a child that is a Tricare beneficiary. And I said, I think maybe you should stop being so rude to me. And he, of course, got a little dismissive after that, and then said I needed to call up my congressman. And I then corrected him and say, oh, I have a congresswoman. She's a nurse, and my son is in love with her and calls her his princess. I said, I can call her right now if you'd like. So these are the kinds of people that unfortunately we're dealing with. So again, we got to get over that government shutdown. We've got to get over Tricare feeling like they don't have to answer to anybody. And what we have just seen in the last, 24 to 48 hours is that Tricare is probably going to start listening to us. Military Special Needs Network, myself, Jeremy Hilton, all of us, we have worked so hard to provide, to get this study done. We have close to 1,000 signatures letting Tricare know that we mean business. And I have never, apparently I like to cry a lot, because I haven't stopped crying off and on for the last couple of days, reading over these people, these moms, these dads, these families, pledging their support and providing help and wanting to be a fantastic voice. And well, you guys are really amazing me, and I feel so humbled by you all, because you are really doing the one thing that people seem to think that we don't have. You are exercising your voice, and you are showing that there is strength in numbers, and that we are a powerful group of people as military spouses. And oh my goodness, you guys have overwhelmed me.
Yeah,
You
know what?
overwhelmed me.
I was going to say, a lot of the times we all have that desire and passion and wanting to do something, but we just need someone to lead us there, to take us there, or even just to motivate us to do something. And I think that having this webinar tells people that they're not the only ones dealing with this. They're not the only ones dealing with Tricare and being frustrated. It is a lot of us that are doing this or going through this, and being together and staying together will be easier to fight this big monster than doing it one at a time in separate ways. So I really hope that we have a lot of people joining this force, so that we can get even stronger and make sure that we just do not do an attempt to change something, that we make it happen, because that's what needs to happen. They need to see us and hear us, that we are not playing, we're fed up with it, and it's time to do something.
Exactly. Verenice, thank you. That's exactly what, you're exactly right. It is, Tricare for Kids, this Tricare for Kids Act, well, now the study, because it was an act and now it's a study, it's including every single child out there. We are including the new moms that can't get in to their primary care physician because they don't have appointments available for 25 to 30 days. And we are including special needs children. We are including children with severe healthcare issues, such as childhood cancers and things like that. We are including every single child out there. We are looking to change just ridiculous policies. Here's an example of a policy that I had to overcome here again at Fort Bragg. We had some damage done to our home last year. Apparently we have a thing with houses in natural disaster, which is just crazy. But we had suffered some water damage in our house and mold damage, and my son started to develop a lot of ear infections again. Well, I never could get in to see his pediatrician, so they were giving me urgent care authorization after urgent care authorization. By the time I got in to see his pediatrician, he had had 5 ear infections at that point. And here's what I was told. Well, while he may have seen doctors and you were bringing me records of these documented ear infections. Since we did not diagnose those ear infections here in the pediatrics department, those do not count as the 5 ear infections that he will need to have in order to get an ENT consult. And I looked at the guy and I was like, you're kidding me, right? I mean, seriously, you're kidding me. How is that possible? That doesn't even make any kind of sense. And I remember I walked out of there that day thinking, this is utterly ridiculous. So I tried to fight it through the patient advocate, and here's what I was told. Well, if you do not like how we do things here, then you can go over to Tricare Standard. So I did. And now I'm on Ian's 7th ear infection. He's meeting his new doctor, and he has a double ear infection, and he looks at me and he goes, how many has he had? And I said, oh, this is his 7th one. That afternoon, I got a phone call from an ENT, and we had his appointment the next week. I had no idea that his new pediatrician had put in for an ENT consult. No idea. But within a month, Ian was getting tubes, and he's doing much better. But it's sad that I have to switch over to Tricare Standard in order to get that level of care for something like ear infections. Ian was suffering a 30% hearing loss by that point and was actually getting ready to have both of his eardrums rupture, and he probably would have permanent hearing loss because I just couldn't simply get in to see his doctor because we were too crowded. So for me, I look at Tricare for Kids as a way to help fix those kinds of things. We are making recommendations to help fix that issue because I'm not the only mom going through those issues. Verenice, you have said it yourself. You are going through those exact issues. I know that there are so many moms and dads out there that are facing those levels of frustration. And it's so difficult to work with an organization that every time you call them or go into the office, you get a different answer every single time. And that is, oh my gosh, that's one of my greatest frustrations with them. They don't even seem to know they don't even seem to know their own policies, and that's just the crazy part. I mean, how do you not know your own policy? But I guess you know what they're set. And in their defense, I get that they are a large organization, and I don't know if you guys remember the telephone game when you were a little kid, and it was, you know, you sat there and whispered a secret around the circle, and by the time it got back to the first person, it was nothing of what, you know, the secret was. And I'm kind of getting the feeling that that's what's going on in Tricare. They're playing the telephone game. And so by the time it gets to the base level with the Tricare regional offices, it doesn't make any kind of sense anymore. You know, it's just the water is so muddy that you can't see clearly. So
you know what happens too, Susan? I think that I think we're experiencing this in a lot of different areas in Tricare, and people doing programs for the military. All these people working or assisting or providing a resource for the military and military families have no clue what our lives is all about. They have no idea what a military lifestyle is all about. This is their job, they get paid, and they just do it without knowing, without experiencing our lives. I think that if they will actually really care and appreciate the input from military families, or hire military spouses or husbands to work in their organizations, they will have a completely different view of what really goes behind the scenes, at least in our situation. And when you have a lot of civilians that are not educated in our lifestyle, sometimes they make the wrong choices because this is what they think is the best for us, not necessarily being the best for us. So it is very frustrating. And even more, you know what, I think all of you experience this. At the clinics that we have on base, there are not enough doctors. It's even hard to get a referral. It's even hard to get an appointment. Since our military is getting smaller, or they're always deployed, or for whatever reasons we don't have the assistance that we need at home, Tricare should be the one to supplement those things. And instead of doing that, they're also giving us a hard time. So they're leaving us with no options. We don't have a good service on base because we don't have enough doctors on base, and Tricare is not assisting us with anything. So I think that fighting Tricare right now, talking about Tricare for Kids, and all the amazing job that you are doing with your peers should all, I know, is also going to assist in that there's so many different needs when it comes to Tricare and the bad service that we are getting, because there's a lot of lack of everything, lack of support, lack of doctors, lack of everything. So I am excited because this is just the beginning of something big, of something that is going to change so many things.
Yes, yes, it is, and I am very confident that the momentum we have going on right now from the Facebook event with this Taking Tricare to Task Part 2, just the people reaching out. I'm not kidding. Like you guys have made me cry. I know that sounds so silly to say that, but because you've made me cry tears of joy. For the first time in probably a couple of years, I don't feel so alone doing this. You know, I felt, and I know I'm not. That's what's so crazy. But when I left that TRICARE meeting back in August, I know that man that was in the meeting with us was a bully. He totally and completely bullied me, and I've never felt so insignificant in my life. And I thought, who can I rely on? Who can I reach out to help me get over, this knockdown in my self-esteem, because this man is going to be very tough to work with. So I reached out to my military family, and we've reached out even more, and we keep on reaching out, and now we have close to 1,000 people who have signed this, our document, our petition saying, Tricare, take us seriously. And we have so many people that are supporting us, sharing the word and helping. And I know that we can keep this momentum going, because once everything is turned in, our next goals for the Tricare for Kids group is to then do a hearing. And then, hold on, let me pull up this email really fast. I want to read it to y'all. We want to do a Hill briefing on Tricare for Kids. We're hoping to do that in the next couple of months. And then we're looking at spring 2014 of doing a full-on congressional hearing, and sitting down and providing information to the Armed Services Committee. And
that's great.
That's very exciting to know that we are really being taken very seriously here. This is not just we as this working group, but we as military families. We are being taken seriously. Every story I hear, I call it my vault. I store it in my vault, and I have rattled off stories left and right, and I can sit here and say, well, I know a family at Fort Bragg that's gone through this. I know a family out at Fort Campbell who has gone through X, Y, and Z. Oh, there's an Air Force family at Holloman Air Force Base that is experiencing this. And your stories, the experiences that you all are having as families, they are moving mountains, believe it or not. It's a slow movement, but you sharing, you experiencing these things, you telling us these, us, your other military family members, what you're going through, you're just helping. You're helping, and you're adding fuel to the fire, and you're keeping people motivated. Because let me tell you something, every time I hear a story like that, I just think that's what we're trying to fix. No more of that nonsense. No more military families should go through this. We are not just I saw somebody in the little chat bar say, we are not just some contract. We are human beings. We are sacrificing so greatly for this country, and our children and our spouses, even us. No, we should not have to go through so much misinformation. And you guys, you all are just, I can't get over how, I cannot get over how much you are just a blessing in so many people's lives. And it's just amazing. It's seriously incredibly overwhelming, but in a really great way.
It is great. Let me tell you.
Fantastic.
Yes, it is. And you know what? I really hope that all of those that are right now in this group and are listening get to understand that although it's been tough and it's been difficult and we feel lonely and frustrated, we had no idea that there was so many people and organizations getting our backs and fighting for what is is the right thing for our kids and fighting for what they need. And I'm just like you, I get so excited and emotional because I know I'm not the only one. And just like you, because we have somehow a way to bring people together, and we can have a voice. It is good to do good things with it. I am so excited, and I think now we can go to the questions and hopefully be able to answer some of them. Ray, do we have questions that we can answer right now?
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much, Susan and Verenice. This is going wonderful. All of that information is immensely helpful. We do have a couple questions that I've been following along in the chat, and then some other ones that I have here as well. Just so everyone knows, in case they missed it, you will get a follow-up email after this that has the links that are on the slides, as well as a recording of today's webinar. So if you're missing anything or want to pass it on to others, we'll have that available for you afterwards. One question, as far as PCSing, starting this process, say, somebody's at, Fort Drum, they start this process, get in touch with their congressman, and then it's time to PCS. What would you suggest, Susan, as far as them moving now to a new duty station, a new state? Do they keep in contact with the previous congressman, start things all over again with the new congressman? What do you think would be an easy way to make that transition?
I wish you guys could see me. I'm actually grinning from ear to ear on this one. I'm a little sly when I come to this stuff. I was born in Virginia, so and used to be a registered Virginia voter, so I keep in touch with my Virginia people. I now am living here in North Carolina. I definitely keep in touch with them, and we were stationed in Nebraska, and I still keep in touch with them. I just keep in touch with every contact. And that's what I do. That is what I would recommend. You've started out working with someone and let them know, hey, I'm PCSing. I realize I may not be in your district any longer. However, as a military spouse, I actually said this one time to somebody, as a military spouse, we are in everyone's district because our lives completely depend on what people are doing in Congress. So if someone tries to say, hey, you're not in this district, just politely remind them that you are a military spouse and you're in everyone's district, because it doesn't matter. I mean, they are voting on legislation up there, putting together budgets, everything that will have a direct impact on the military family. So to me, I like to remind people to be incredibly mindful of what they are doing. So let's say you're moving from Fort Drum to Fort Campbell. Keep in touch with the guy from Fort Drum or the woman from Fort Drum. Keep in touch with that person. Let them know, hey, I'm moving to Fort Campbell. I realize I won't be in your district, but I've established a nice relationship with you all. Could you please introduce me to the district congressman or woman or the senators from Tennessee or Kentucky? And honestly, they are probably more than willing to help out with that kind of stuff because they want to help. It's just that simple. I've noticed that, believe it or not, our congressmen and women, especially the representatives, they really want to help. But they don't know what to do necessarily. And that's what, to me, they're like, well, what can we do to help? So you have to, when you're talking to them, make sure you let them know what you are seeking out and have a lot of solutions. Go for the gold, but also know that you will take bronze. So, they will be willing to do whatever, most of them I have gotten in touch with are willing to do whatever they can to help military families out. And, they just really want to help. So don't lose contact, actually have them get you in contact with your next person.
Yep.
That's my, and keep in touch with everyone.
Yep. Something that I've done too, and I don't know, remember, it's not just your state, it's also if your husband is from a different state, if your kids were born in another state. So I am in touch in Alabama because we were in Alabama. I am now in touch with New Mexico because we live here, and in Texas because my kids were born in Texas. So there are like so many different ways that you relate to them in many different ways, and not just where you're living right now or where you're from. So take advantage of all those different ways that you can relate to be able to reach out to them.
Yep, that's exactly what I do, Verenice. And it works out very well. So, and believe it or not, everyone wants to, they really do want to listen, and they love to hear a story. And I know that sounds so odd to say and probably a little different, but they absolutely love to hear a story.
It's kind of like what I was saying earlier. When someone does not know what we go through or our military lives, they don't know. And in order for them to know, we have to educate them. So that's why we have to take the initiative to lead them and ask for what we want and not assume that they know. Because sometimes they have the intentions to help, but since they don't know and they have no idea, they don't do nothing about it. So it will be a great thing that we can lead them to what we need and educate them. That way, hopefully, they don't make the same mistakes over and over and over.
Exactly. And what I have noticed in working with my district congresswoman here, while yes, she has obviously, I said she was a nurse, so obviously she has a background in healthcare. The one thing she is not incredibly familiar with is the inner workings of what goes on in day-to-day military life, because of course she is briefed on things that are completely different. And so a lot of times I've noticed that they really enjoy having what they call, because we all know this term, the boots on the ground person. And that tends to be that spouse that's reached out and said, hey, there's something going on with our Tricare here, and I'm not really pleased with it, but I have some solutions here. There are people working on this, and I support this. There are people working on Tricare for kids, and I support it. The moment you say things like that, they're going to probably start looking at you as kind of a boots on the ground person. Like, who? Oh, well, let's call up Verenice, because she's local. She's there, at the base level. Let's talk to her and see what she sees going on and what she's hearing around the base and things like that. I mean, it's amazing how they will start looking to you as a military spouse as their military expert is not the best word, but as a really good go-to person when it comes time to all things military. And that's a really great voice to have, to provide for military families that way, because you just happen to advocate for military families and say, hey, you know what, I want to see some change here, and I want to see some change in our healthcare. They're going to remember you, and they're going to say, hey, how about that girl, or how about that guy, back at, insert random base,
That is so very true. You're spot on all of that. That's good. Okay, well, do we have another question, Bree?
Yeah.
Before we run out of time?
Yeah, no, that was a wonderful answer, Susan. That was wonderful. The next question would be, do you know of anything specifically relating to Tricare and medical coverage for military families that will change with Obamacare and that sort of situation? Do you know of anything off the top of your head?
So far, I don't know too much about that. I am a representative with the National Military Family Association. They actually just put out their newsletter on their Facebook page in regards to this issue, and I got it late yesterday, and I haven't finished reading it all the way through. So that is totally my fault, everyone, and I'm sorry about that. But from what I have been told, we should not see a lot of change. I'm sure people are hearing rumors left and right about, what could happen to us with Obamacare, with the Affordable Health Care Act. They're all just rumors and speculation. I would really read over this. If I can try to find it really quickly, I would read over this information from National Military Family Association. Their government relations department really worked on trying to I found it. Get this information out to our families. And here, let me post it right here with everybody to see. I will put it right here in the little chat box so that people can look at that. Oops, I just sent it to Barbara. Sorry, Barbara, I didn't mean to send it just to you. I meant to send it to everybody. Why did that happen? Okay, apparently I am technologically not smart. Okay, there you go. Um, so I know that they are really looking into this issue, the National Military Family Association. I am very impressed by them looking into this. I started asking about the Affordable Care Act and Tricare about a month or two ago, and they've been doing some pretty good research since then. So they are, to me, there are certain organizations out there that are really willing to get you this information, and I would reach out to them. I can help reach out to them because I don't mind doing it. I'm part of some of these organizations as a volunteer, so I will definitely help out. And if anyone has any questions or follow-up or anything like that, there's my information, and I will gladly follow up with anyone's questions. Um, it's to me, if I don't know the answer, I'm going to find the answer and I'm going to connect you to that answer because we just need it. We need answers, and answers stop rumors from happening too. So if we get the right answers out there, or like, I guess correct may be the better term, then we can really, really focus on making the change that we need to update Tricare to help us out and to, just keep on working together.
That sounds great. Great, great.
Yes.
Bree, one last question. I guess we can go with the last question before we.
Okay, yeah, last one. So, with all of this information and all of this vast amount of knowledge that you've shared with everybody today, Susan, it can be slightly overwhelming for people who, aren't as advanced or as, involved with this process as you are. If you could give everyone one tip of where to start, like a first step after this webinar is over today to get headed in the right direction, what would you say that would be?
Oh my gosh, that's a fantastic question. I don't know who asked that, but I would totally hug them right now. That is a really, really great question. The thing that helped me the most was doing research before I spoke. Because passion is fantastic, but if you are passionate and you don't know what you're talking about, that is just not a good combination. So I always did my research. Excuse me. Like I said earlier, there was that time that I was on the phone trying to get an urgent care authorization, and I was like, hold on, let me tell you what I'm reading right here from the Tricare website. That is the best thing that you can start out with. A part of these slides, I have the Tricare website on there of what's covered, what isn't covered. Reference that. And I am not kidding. Reference it all the time. I have actually read through that numerous times. Because I want to make sure when I speak to people at Tricare, when I start speaking to my congresswoman, when I start speaking to these support organizations, that even if I'm not 100% knowledgeable, at least I know a little something. So do your research. And I know that can be very overwhelming and difficult. So if you can't figure out where to start, reach out to people who can help you. And I'm one of those people. Verenice is one of those people. I'm going to do a plug for another organization that I'm proud of, and I am actually a member of because I am actually a learning disabled adult. I am a member of the Military Special Needs Network, and they love to help and research and help our families out. And part of what we're trying to do with all of these different organizations is to empower each other. So start out by doing your research, and then go in and say, hey, you know what, this is what I found reading over the Tricare website. Are you sure that maybe, we're interpreting things a little bit different? Because it's amazing how people will read these policies and get something completely different from what you're reading. So do your research. That's the biggest first step. And then keep your emotions in check, because no one wants to deal with the emotional person. They really, when we start yelling and screaming at them, everything shuts down at that point. So do your research and keep your emotions in check. As I told my friend Kate one day, speak honey. You catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar, so start speaking honey.
Yep, that's true. That is so true. You know what? And if you know any other spouse that is going through this, go ahead and bring them along with you. Keep them under your wing. Support them. Give them all the knowledge that you have. send them to Susan, send them to whoever is assisting with me, anyone. There's so many people and organizations trying to reach out to spouses that need the assistance. And once again, this was the purpose of this webinar. Try to share with you experiences. Susan wanting to share her experience, her knowledge, and hopefully be able to reach out to more. So when you get the email with the recorded webinar, please share it all over, send it to everyone, because you know what, we don't know who's going to need this webinar in 2 years. We don't know who's going to find out that their child is a special needs child in 2, 3, 4 years. This is not something that is going to stay here. This is something that is going to keep on going and going and going. So I want to say thank you so much to all of you for joining us, for allowing us to bring these webinars and try to empower you, to give you the knowledge, to make you confident and make your skills get even stronger so you can join us and fight for all the needs that we have. Thank you, Susan. Thank you so very much for being part of this, for sharing, for advising us, for doing the things that you do. And I also want to thank Jeremy Hilton, because he is an amazing advocate, and the Military Special Needs Network, and all of those organizations that are supporting our kids that we have no idea who is doing it, but we know there's so many out there doing it. So thank you so much to everyone. And Susan, once again, thank you so much. You're awesome.
Oh, Verenice, I love you. Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to other people and to get some help, you know, because we're going to take care of each other. That's what we do.
That's what we are a family. And as a family, we need to stay together, fight together, and support each other. Brit, thank you so much for helping us to put this together. I think it was another successful webinar. This is so cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank both of you for putting this on, and thank everyone for attending. Like I said, I will look for a follow-up email probably later this afternoon. I'll get it out, and I will put this recording, all of the links that you see on your screen, and then I'll try to compile. I'll get Susan, if you wouldn't mind emailing me some of the resources that you suggested they look into and educate themselves on, and I'll pass those along to everyone as well. Okay. So from Military Spouse Magazine, thank you all for attending. I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.